The following broadcast is a Nighthawk Network presentation. Hello, everybody. What's going on? It's your boy eBuck, and this is the Big Buck Sports Report coming to you live from the Nighthawk Network studios. Shout out to all the various conglomerates that we are now broadcasting the show upon. Greetings to all those people in those audiences around the country and across the world as we broadcast from the Nighthawk Network to over 25 states and at least 4 countries in this place we call the earth. Anyway, let's get into it. We are talking sports with you guys. We're going to start it out with baseball as today started the MLB playoffs. We now, of course, know who's all in said playoffs. We have 4 teams and then 3 more teams. In all, we have 14 of the teams in this current playoff. Let us check in, as now we should at least know where most of those teams are going and have started game 1 and ended game 1 in most of those scenarios. So we will go here to our little ticker and find out where we are in the playoffs. As you know, the last 2 teams made the playoffs just yesterday when in a doubleheader, which was scheduled because of games missed due to inclement weather. The Mets and Braves played out the final 2 games of the season. The Mets indeed won the first game, ensuring that they were in the playoffs, followed by losing to the Braves in the second game, which put the Braves in the playoffs. So crazy enough, it did come down to the last game of the season to determine what 2 teams in the National League would be in the wild card. And indeed, those 2 teams were the Mets and the Braves. Speaking of those teams right now, we do have finals in all 4 of today's games. Keep in mind that this first round of playoffs, as far as Major League goes, is series of 3, best 2 out of 3. And all of those games are in the park of the player or the team with the better record in terms of seeding and what have you. So because of that, we now have 8 teams playing in this first round of the playoffs, and all 8 of those teams have played the first game of the season in terms of playoffs. And so far, this is what we got. The last game that was played today was the Padres and the team called the Braves. The Padres won that game 4-0. They are now up 1-0. Those games are being played in San Diego. So the next 2 games will also be played in San Diego. Remember, this is best 2 out of 3. All 3 of the games will be played in that person's park. I really don't care for that so much, but because we're trying to condense it to where the playoffs don't drag off into the earlier days of November, where we know the weather is not going to be quite so good for baseball, I get why they set it up in this manner. So that being said, it's definitely probably a greater advantage to the team that is the home team. And so far today, at least in terms of the Padres, they are the team that won that first game. We now go to the Mets and the Brewers. Mets won that game 8-4. They actually played that one in Milwaukee. So actually the visiting team won that first game. Remember, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, all 3 of those games should be taking place in these 4 ballparks that we're talking about. We, in turn, shall find out by Friday who's moving on to the next round of these playoffs. We got Kansas City and the Orioles playing in another set of games in the American League. That game was a tight one. The Royals won that one 1-0. So they indeed beat Baltimore in Baltimore. And of course, got to finish up with my Detroit Tigers, teams that I am a fan of. They indeed went into Houston and won today in Houston, 3-1 in a very tight game at the end. Got down to bases loaded and getting robbed of a game, potentially tying or winning hit by the last batter of the game in order to win that game. So, playoffs have been pretty straightforward so far. Right now, We know that the Tigers, Royals, Mets, and Padres are up one game. They all play again tomorrow, so we will see how that goes from there. We are at the end of the season. Definitely a few accomplishments to talk about in baseball. First of all, got to look out for who's going to be, without a doubt, not only the MVP, but should be the unanimous MVP in the National League. That would be Shohei Ohtani. He had a unbelievable season, probably one of the better seasons in modern times when you look at his overall numbers. I mean, take a look. He basically finished second in the National League in hitting, batting .314. He also had 54 home runs, 130 RBIs, 59 stolen bases, 197 hits. That's just a crazy stat line when you consider he was a DH who, because he was injured, was not able to pitch this season. Imagine if that had been the case. And he also had some pretty decent pitching numbers as well. Matters now, like I said, he is definitely your MVP. He is definitely somebody who has had one incredible season. Almost won the Triple Crown in the National League, in fact. Now, of course, you look at the American League, the MVP on the American League side more than likely will be Aaron Judge. He also had a great season. He batted .297, I believe it was. 58 home runs, 144 RBIs. Another great season for him. He will win his multiple MVP. Keep in mind, both of the people we're talking about should be multiple MVP winners. And those two teams had two of the better records in the league when you look at the teams that they were the leaders of, the Dodgers and the Yankees, who I'm sure for the most part is probably most people's choices to be in the World Series at this point. Actually, the team with the best odds to make the World Series at this point is the Dodgers plus 300. Kind of hard to deny that. Like I said, I picked them to go to the World Series. I picked them to win the World Series because of all the things they did in that offseason, particularly adding Ohtani and Masaka with some of the highest payroll, if not the highest payroll ever for a team. You think if you put that type of investment and money into what you're trying to do in terms of win baseball games and win championships, you should get your money's worth. So far, so good. We shall see what happens when those two teams, keeping in mind that they are on buys because they had two of the better records, so they're not in this particular round of the playoffs. We will see what those teams do when it comes time for them to play when the second round of the playoffs begin. All right. Also want to look at the Cy Young Award races. Keep in mind, those are over. The two Cy Young Award winners should be the two pitchers who actually won baseball's pitching triple crown this year. Something that I think has never been accomplished in many years, where both pitchers in the American League and National League won the triple crown of pitching in their respective league. In other words, had the best ERA, had the best amount of wins, and the best amount of strikeouts. So when you look at Tarik Skubal in the American League, Detroit Tigers, and Chris Sale, Atlanta Braves in the National League, they both won 18 games. They both had ERAs that were about the same, 2.39 for Skubal, 2.38 for Sale, and they both had over 200 strikeouts. Skubal led the American League with 228, and Sale led the National League with 225. Looking at those numbers, it'd be hard pressed for either one of them not to be the Cy Young Award winners in either league. So we got that going. And then, of course, like I said, there were the usual no-hitters and baseball accomplishments that happened that only baseball can produce. So definitely was a pretty good season for baseball. Let's see how these playoffs make out. So far, so good. Looking forward to watching more of it as it breaks down and comes into play. So that's our baseball talk here on the Big Buck Sports Report. We'll take a quick commercial break. When we come back, we're going to get into the WNBA playoffs and what's going on there. This is Big Buck Sports Report. I am E-Buck. Let's talk about it with our Nikki.
Nikki. Let's talk. Let's talk. Let's talk. Let's talk. Nikki. Nikki.
Nighthawk Network presents Pastor Sean Love.
Pastor Sean Love, devoted father and husband, a residing pastor at the River Rouge Bible Assembly in River Rouge, Michigan. Join him as he gives us messages from God's Word, Bible study, and encouragement. You can find him on YouTube under Sean Love. What's going on, y'all? Big Buck Sports Report is back. Your boy E-Buck in the building. Feeling slightly under weather due to the weather change and whatnot, fall coming, what have you. But we are powering through it, just like they are now powering through the WNBA playoff season. As you know, playoffs started last week in the WNBA. We are now down from 8 teams to 4 teams, and those teams are currently playing in the WNBA playoffs. Let's see where we are in that process. So let me go to the magic phone here and get the latest results in regards to that there. All right. We are, like I said, in the second round of the WNBA playoffs. So far, the teams that are no longer with us in terms of playoffs are the following. We no longer have the Liberty. They lost. No, we no longer have the Dream. They lost to the Liberty 2 out of 3. Also, no more. Hold on. Give me a second, good people. All right, there we go. We no longer have the Storm. They lost to the Aces in the first round. Again, 2-0. We got the Fever no longer in it, so no more Caitlin Clark. I'm sure that's not what the WNBA wants, seeing that she brought so many people in to view the WNBA. But her team is no longer in the playoffs. And also the Phoenix Mercury no longer in the playoffs. All those teams won the best out of 3 series, 2-0. And in that first round, real quick, so now we are in the process of the second round. And in that second round, we are in game 2 of both of those series, seeing that we now have just 4 teams left in the WNBA playoffs. Those teams are the Connecticut Sun, Minnesota Lynx, Las Vegas Aces, and New York Liberty. And we do have a final in one of those games for Tuesday. Keep in mind that the Aces and Liberties are playing, and the Liberty are already up 1-0. They did indeed move on to win the second game in the series. Keeping in mind that this round of the playoffs and the final round of the playoffs are best of 5 series. So now the Liberty are up 2-0 on the Aces. The Aces, we should point out, are the current WNBA champions, 2-time WNBA champions at that. I picked them to 3-peat. Right now, in order for them to do that, you're going to have to win all 3 of these last 3 games against the Liberty in order to get to the WNBA final. So it's not looking so good for them. Again, it was 88-84 the final in that one. Take a quick peek at the box score since we're sitting here. Let's check out and see what that was about there. If my phone should allow it. I'm a little technical difficulty in regards to accessing that information. That's no good. All right, give me a second, people. Keep in mind we are recording this live, but this should play back later on. So if you see me fumbling here on your screen, that's what's going on. My bad. But of course, if you're hearing this on the broadcast, my bad as well. But we are working through it. All right, so apparently we're not going to get that information at the moment. That's okay. We will look that up later on. But in the meanwhile, the second game of the playoffs, in the second round of the playoffs for the WNBA, we got the Connecticut Sun and the Minnesota Lynx. That game is in Minnesota. And right now, Minnesota, with about 4 minutes left in that game, is winning 70-60 over the Connecticut Sun. If they win, that will give them a 1-1 tie with the Connecticut Sun in that best of 5 series. And that's a good thing because, we want some competitive play. And I would not mind at least one of these series going to all 5 games. If things stay as they are at the moment, either the Sun or the Lynx will meet up with more than likely the Liberty in the final of the WNBA. And if I think it comes down to those 2 teams, I do believe I like the Liberty's chances of pulling it off and becoming the new WNBA champion. that looks very good for them. Keep in mind, they were in the finals last year against the Aces and gave them more than what they could stand. But in the end, Aces did pull that out despite some major injuries they had in that WNBA final. Not the case this year. I just think at this point, the Liberty are better built to contend with what the Aces are offering in terms of offense right now. And the Aces are not quite as good defensively as they were the year before, even though I arguably say they have the best defender in the WNBA, even though Nafisha Collier was picked to be the defensive player of the year. I still say Asia Wilson probably should have won that in addition to being the player of the year in the WNBA, my personal opinion. But anyway, that playoff continues to go on. Like I said, those are best of 5 series moving forward. So we should know sometime later on in the week, more than likely, who's moving on to the WNBA final, which should start sometime later on next week. So that is that. And other news in the W, we did learn that the newest franchise in the WNBA, that would be the Golden State Valkyries, are going to have an expansion draft in which they will be allowed to pick players from the other teams. How it's supposed to go, that draft's supposed to take place sometime early December. All the other teams in the WNBA will be allowed to protect 6 of the 12 players on their roster to not be picked in the expansion draft. So more than likely, the top 5 starters and bench player from each team will probably be kept by that team that is not in the draft, that's not named the Valkyries. And then the Valkyries will be allowed to pick or pick up the contract of any of the remaining players that are not protected from those particular picks. Now, that being said, also keep in mind there are over, I believe, 40 people that were currently playing in this particular WNBA season that are currently free agents. Those people do not count toward those picks. So if there are already free agents out there that basically are not trying to go back to their said team, they are in a different pool of players that also can be picked instead of by the Golden State Valkyries. Now, I do not have that listing of potential free agency, but there are some big names on it. As I recall, there are people such as Brittany Griner, for example, that is a potential free agent. Like I said, if I had that list, it'd be better to go through that. But definitely people that were starters this year in the WNBA are on that free agency list. So my guess will be there will be some pretty decent players on the Valkyries. I do like this model for them to start that expansion franchise in that way so that they're not completely behind the 8 ball with a just terrible team of has-beens and whatnots and people's junk. There should actually be some quality people on that Valkyries team moving forward. Now, in terms of the WNBA draft, my guess is that because they're not in the pool of the 4 that were going to be in the lottery, that they will probably automatically get the 5th pick. I think that's how that's going to work. So they will definitely get a decent pick in the WNBA draft as well. So just looking forward to that franchise starting next year. Keep in mind also in the following year, 2026, at this point, there will be 2 more teams added to the WNBA. Those teams will be teams from Toronto and Portland. I don't believe either one of those teams have actual team nicknames yet, so we don't know what they will be called. But definitely looking forward to it. There are also thoughts that the league are going to continue to expand. They at least would like to have 18 to 24 teams, I believe, was the number that they settled upon at some point within the next 10 years or so of the league. Like I said, with the growing audience of the league, this is probably the best time to do expansion. And I actually would like for them to look to do more of the teams that were previously in the W, because I do believe now some of those fan bases would be more accepting of the W and would support them more, particularly in squads that or basically in cities that already have NBA teams, such as ours. Remember, Detroit Shock for a time was one of the best teams, if not the best team in WNBA. They chose to move on from here. I would definitely like for a WNBA franchise to be put back in the city of Detroit. Like I said, there's other great cities that definitely would support basketball, such as Oklahoma City and Seattle. Would definitely like to see them get a franchise at some. Well, no, Seattle has one. Duh, the Storm. My bad, y'all. It's late. I apologize. Let's move on. This is the Big Buck Sports Report. E-Buck in the bill, like I said, a little bit under the weather. Recording this one a little late, so I apologize for some of the miscues that may take place. My bad. But we still here to talk the sports because we like to do that with y'all, okay? So that's the WNBA Finals in a nutshell. That's what's going on there. We are now going to move on to a discussion about last week's college football. Let's get into that. The new top 25 is out, and I will give you the quick update of who is in said top 25. This week, after their win over Georgia, and what was definitely a great SEC battle, by the way. If you are a fan of college football, you had to like what you saw from both of those teams. Granted, not a defensive juggernaut on either side. Both teams scored over 30. It was definitely some good defensive plays at times in that game. But when all is said and done, Alabama did pull off the victory over Georgia, two of the better teams, not only in the SEC, but definitely two of the best teams in college football. If every game was like that, people would definitely watch it, probably more than the NFL. It was that entertaining to me. I did enjoy what I saw. There are definitely a lot of those young men that we will see playing on Sundays moving forward. So, yeah, that was that game. And as a result of that game, Alabama is now the number one team in the country. Number two team is Texas. They were the number one team last week. Still a very good squad. Wait to see what happens when Ewers is actually back able to play again. Will they take out the young Arch Manning and put Ewers back in? Or will they just keep it rolling with Manning? It will be interesting to see how they play that when they get to that. And I imagine they will be to there sooner than later. At number three, you have those stinking Buckeyes. They are the number three team in the country. Really haven't played nobody of great worth, in my personal opinion. But we will see what happens now that they're getting deeper into the Big Ten season and how well they will make out. Tennessee is the number 4 team in the country, another SEC squad playing well. You got Georgia, after losing that game, they are now ranked number 5 in the country. I'm good with that ranking. You got Oregon at number 6, Penn State at number 7. I do believe Oregon is probably going to be up there a little bit more. Penn State definitely overrated. I think it's only a matter of time before they are found out, even though they did play well against Illinois last week. I definitely think once they get to stiffer competition, their true colors will come out and they will not be a top 10 team moving forward. You got Miami at number 8 with one of arguably the better candidates for the Heisman Trophy, and Cam Ward, basically a fifth-year COVID senior. It might even be his 6th year for all I know. But definitely showing signs of maturity and playing some very good quarterback for Miami. And at number 9, you got Missouri, another SEC team that's playing well. And you got at number 10, Michigan. Now, I got to be honest. Only reason Michigan is number 10 at this point, in my personal opinion, because they are the reigning national champions. When you look at Michigan and how they have played overall, not very convinced that they are a top 10 team at this point, primarily because of what we see at the quarterback position. Definitely not comfortable with what they got going. Orji, I don't feel is a quality quarterback, period. Okay. Game manager, maybe. But in terms of his throwing of the football, not really liking that aspect of his game at all. Is he a good runner of the football? Obviously so. Is he a good athlete? Obviously so. Should he be quarterback? That is the question. I think at this point, Michigan has been very fortunate. Their defense is good. They've played most of their games at home. That has been to their advantage. I think as the season molds on, they definitely may have to make another change at quarterback moving forward if they are to get anywhere of note this season in college football. Like I said, because the Big Ten is definitely down overall as a league, they are getting away with it. And at this point, it has them at number 10. I do not feel, truthfully, they are a top 10 team. But yet, there they are. You got number 11, USC, team that actually lost to the Wolverines. They shouldn't be at number 11 either. I'm going to say that. We got Ole Miss at number 12. They probably should be ranked higher. You got LSU at 13, probably should be ranked a little lower. You got Notre Dame at 14. Notre Dame will be there. They'll be around there. Like I said, there is thought process that they are in this playoff until they're not in this playoff. Remember, it's not just about the playoff itself. It's about the money that it would generate. And the Notre Dame program will bring people to the house, okay? I will continue to say that. I do feel like that is the case. You got Clemson at 15. That's kind of a surprise. You got Iowa State, another surprise at 16. BYU, Utah, Oklahoma, and Kansas State round out your top 20. Okay? Another team I want to throw in that mix is basically a team over there in Colorado called the Buffaloes. I have not been overly impressed with what they have done overall this season, but I definitely was impressed with the game they played last week over there in Colorado. Finally, we saw what we thought we should be seeing from this Colorado team in terms of the overall play. They actually were able to run the ball. They did very well from a passing standpoint. They did actually pretty good in terms of blocking for the quarterback. Keeping in mind that their offensive line play in previous games up until that point was not good at all. Not really. But if they can put that game plan together and play like they did both on offense and defense in that game this Saturday, or last Saturday, the rest of the season, they will be a team to contend with. Is this a one-time only type of scenario? Or is this the beginning of something bigger for them? Time will tell. We will see. But definitely like what we saw. And beyond a shadow of a doubt, Shakur Sanders is not a Heisman candidate. His teammate Travis Hunter most definitely not only should be a candidate, but probably at this point would be the winner of said Heisman Trophy if it was to be handed out today. I mean, you cannot overlook the fact that he has played very well on defense and very well on offense. You put those two things together, that definitely makes him the most talented and most valuable player in the country, in my personal opinion. So we have that. Now, in terms of what we're looking at this week in terms of games in the top 25, let's see what we got here. We got Oregon playing Michigan State in Oregon. I think that's going to be a butt whooping. They have Oregon by 24. I'm not mad at that. You got UNLV, who's actually number 25, playing Syracuse. That Syracuse is a tougher team than you may think. That might actually be a game. Penn State plays UCLA. UCLA is actually 1-3 at this point. Not having the best of time in their first inaugural season in the Big Ten. Penn State will probably win that, seeing as at Penn State. You got Texas A&M and Missouri. That definitely should be one of the better games this week, no doubt. Look for Missouri to put up a nice little fight against Texas A&M. I can see either one of these teams winning. They have Texas A&M at -2. I'm not picking that game. That could go either way. You got Louisville at SMU. I think Louisville will pull that one out. You got those stinking Buckeyes against Iowa. Iowa usually a very good defensive team, but then again, O State gonna do what they usually do, which is pretty much play everybody good until they get to one or two teams, usually one named Michigan these last few years. So, yeah, definitely see O State winning that game. You got Georgia after that big win, big loss, I should say, against Alabama playing Auburn. I think they will come back and win that one. You got Ole Miss and South Carolina, two actually very good SEC teams. That should be a good game. I'm going to go with Ole Miss, though. You got Indiana playing Northwestern. Northwestern 2-2. Probably not even that good. I see Indiana waxing the floor with them. And, of course, you got the number one team, Alabama, playing Vanderbilt. Vanderbilt actually better this year than they have been in years past. So they should put up a little better fight. But I think Alabama, well, they got Alabama by 23. Maybe not the 23, but definitely Alabama in that one. Clemson and Florida State. Florida State 1-4. Definitely the biggest surprise this season in terms of the better teams in the country. They are not having a good season, and I don't think it's going to get any better. I do believe Clemson will beat them, and they will be 1-5. Interesting to see what happens later on in the year if they decide to let the Florida State coach go and they go looking for another coach. Name Deion Sanders rings a bell in Florida State. Former alma mater, I'm just saying. Might want to start putting them pieces together. All right, you got Boise State at 21 playing Utah State. They'll probably win that one. You got Tennessee at Arkansas. Arkansas a little bit better than people might give them credit for. They got Tennessee by 13.5. I think I would take Arkansas, but Tennessee will probably win that one. You got Michigan at Washington. Washington is actually favored 2.5. I'm not mad at that. This is actually a game where the Wolverines will not be at the big house. So considering how I've seen them play the last few weeks, would not be surprised they lost that game at all. For some reason, though, I'm thinking they will pull that one out. And you got USC at Minnesota. Minnesota looked real bad last week against the Wolverines. That's a game that they probably should have won. But because they don't have the talent base that they need to be successful against teams like that, they didn't pull it out against USC. It's in the realm of possibility. They have USC by -8. I think I would definitely take the points on that one, and Minnesota might actually pull off the victory. So that is okay. A couple more top 25. You got Iowa State at Baylor. I'll go with Iowa State on that one. And you got Miami against California. Miami looking very good. I think they will continue to be undefeated and beat California there. So that is our look at college football, I should say. Keep in mind, college basketball is starting practices right now. Actually, it have been for a few weeks. We should be getting into that season sometime at the end of the month. It will be college basketball season before you know it. Looking forward to both that and the women's side as well. But right now, we are going to switch over and talk some NFL, as in what happened last week and who I think is going to do what they're going to do this week. How about that? So last week, of course, we started out the week with, the Cowboys and the Giants. Cowboys beat the Giants. They were supposed to. They're supposed to beat them by more than 20-15, but yet they did not. Some big injuries came up on the Cowboys side on the defensive front, especially if Micah Parsons is not going to be playing for the next few weeks. That definitely cripples that defense. Not looking good for you Cowboys fans in terms of making it to the bowl. Keeping in mind, that's always y'all goal, to make it to the bowl no matter what. Right now, I do believe Cowboys are 3. Hold on. Hold that thought. And again, can't access that information either. But, here we go. Currently, the Cowboys are 2-2. I could see a scenario where they still make the playoffs, but them getting anywhere beyond what they have the last few years, probably not. Probably not. All right, let's go to the Sunday games. All right, first of all, we had the Broncos and the Jets. That was a horrible game, people. Not the best weather to play in. That did play a role, but in the end, 10-9, and the Jets actually lost that game to the Broncos, a team that's basically rebuilding. And the Jets are supposed to be playoff contenders. Yeah. Bottom line is Aaron Rodgers looked old that game. He is not the scrambler he once was. Still has the good arm. Still makes some okay decisions. Made some bad ones in that game, though. Basically didn't complete 20 of the passes he threw. Yeah. It don't look good for the Jets right now. It does not. You got the Vikings and the Packers. The Vikings, the surprise team in the league thus far, beyond a shadow of a doubt. They are now undefeated at 4-0 with Sam Darnold as the starting quarterback. Who would have thought that Sam Darnold, after all the bouncing around he did the last couple of years, would find a home in Minnesota and thrive. So much so that I do believe even when J.J. McCarthy is healthy next year, he probably should be the understudy in the backup. And Sam Darnold should be allowed to play it on out because they look good with him at quarterback right now. And that defense is a lot better than I thought they would be. Right now, if you pressed my head, would they make the playoffs? Yeah, I can see that. Absolutely. Would they win the division? Even that's in the realm of possibility. I still say the Lions got that one, but I can see it. As far as the Packers go, yeah, Jordan Love, he just came back from off an injury, and he kind of looked like that at times. He was a little rusty. He played that way. I think they would definitely play better moving forward, assuming that Jordan Love is healthy now. Beyond the realm of that, not much to say. They almost pulled off the victory in it as it was. It was 31-29. Okay, the Saints and the Falcons. Falcons actually won that game. I was surprised. Saints had a bad game. You know, we talk about any given Sunday. It was kind of like that for the Saints. They had some good moments, but Falcons did what they needed to do. They got that game winning 58-yard field goal from Koo, and they won the game. They handled biz. NFC South, I think this still up for grabs now. It's not the runaway that I thought it would be with the Falcons. I can see Falcons, Saints, and also the Buccaneers in the midst of who might win that yet again. All right. Speaking of the Buccaneers, they did put a beat down on the Eagles, 33-16. Bad things going on there with the Eagles. Okay. It's definitely a team chemistry issue, I think. I'm not liking what I'm seeing overall in terms of them all being on the same page, and at times in the game, it definitely shows. Yes, they do have some key injuries over there, and particularly in the wide receiver core, but we are not getting Jalen Hurts' best work. We are not getting their offensive coordinators' best work. We're not getting their head coach's best work. It's some meetings need to be had. It's some things they need to work out over there in Philly. It's looking bad right now. It's looking bad. Buccaneers definitely in the midst of being a playoff team, no doubt. You got the Bengals finally winning their first game of the year, which is the good news. Bad news is it was the Panthers, and you know the Panthers, after having that real good week last week where they actually won one, they played more like the Panthers at times in this one. Before I said 0-17 was looking real good for them, is 1-16 looking good for them now? Not really. I can see them winning another 1 or 2 maybe, but still a bad team that still got a lot of work to do long term. All right, we got the Jaguars and the Texans. That was 24-20, but again, the Texans still ain't quite the team they were last year. They still are doing a lot of things that I question, a lot of stupid penalties by them. Some of the play calling has not been quite as good as it was last year. They're not quite that team just yet. They lucked up and beat the Jaguars, who are definitely having a bad year. Starting to wonder if that dude, Trevor Lawrence, is the long-term answer at quarterback for the Jaguars. He is not putting up the type of numbers that we thought he should be at this point. Definitely something to keep an eye on there. You got the Colts. They beat the Steelers. Now, understand the Colts are a team. Like I said, I don't know what we're going to get in the end from them. Anthony Richardson looked very good early in that game before he got hurt. Understanding that playing quarterback as he does, being a running quarterback, sacrificing his body in a way that is not healthy, it may not be in his best interest long term. He may need to learn how to slide or determine not to make some of those quarterback run decisions to the extent that he does. On the other hand, Justin Fields definitely looking like a good investment thus far. Understand they did not win that game, but he still played relatively well. Had a bad turnover in that one that pretty much was the difference in that game. But in terms of him being the starting quarterback, I think I would let him cook and keep Russell on the best, even if they do finally get him healthy. At this point, I feel like the long-term solution for Pittsburgh is to have Justin Fields at quarterback doing his thing. And, of course, that defense didn't have a best day, but they'll be back. Long and short of it, somehow, some way, Pittsburgh will still find a way to win games. And I think when and the season is here, they will once again have a winning record. The Rams and the Bears, not the best game. Keep in mind, the Rams have big-time injuries on the offensive front. When you got the two better receivers in the National Football League, being Puka Nacua and Cooper Kupp not playing, it kind of handcuffs you in terms of what you can do offensively, even though you have Matthew Stafford and Sean McVay. The Bears, they are getting better. I think they are the type of product where at the end of the year, they'll be a lot better team than they are now. Caleb Williams still going through his growing pains. They're working with him, and, at times he looks brilliant. At other times he looks very much like a rookie trying to figure things out. So have a little patience with him. Let's see what happens there. On the other hand, Jay Daniels does not look like a rookie over there in Washington, and he is playing some very inspired ball, some good ball, making very good decisions with the football, running the ball well, very good passer rating, breaking rookie records. He is definitely looking like your rookie MVP right now, Jay Daniels, the quarterback for the Washington Commanders. And as a result, they put a stomping on the Cardinals. The Cardinals are not playing good football these last couple weeks. First, it was what they did with the Lions, and last week they only regressed even further against the Commanders. Definitely some things need to be adjusted there, particularly on that offense with the Cardinals. But the Commanders, they look very good. They look like a playoff team right now based on what we've been seeing the last couple of weeks. We'll see if they can keep it going. The 49ers beat the Patriots. Not much to say there. They won, even though 49ers still without McCaffrey. They got most of the other weapons back, and they used them to beat up on the Patriots, and the score probably shouldn't have been that close. It's still going to be a very long season for those New England Patriots, bottom line. Raiders and the Browns, not the best game. Raiders pulled that one out. Two not so good teams right now. Browns defense not quite as good as it was last year. Offense still not clicking the way it needs to be. Raiders did just enough to pull that one out, but ultimately definitely see them being sellers when the trade deadline gets here. Okay, we got the Chiefs and the Chargers. Chiefs somehow, some way keep managing to win these games without playing their best football. We have not seen the best of the Kansas City Chiefs yet. We know this. Patrick Mahomes still not putting in his best work, but doing well enough to still find ways to have that team win. When all is said and done, they are still one of the undefeated teams up in the league at 4-0. They made it happen. Now, Rashee Rice out for a significant time with a knee injury. Number one running back Checo out. The injuries are starting to pile up for those guys. Next man up mentality seems to be working, though. Good news is we definitely got a better game from Travis Kelce than we had in the last couple games. He didn't score, but definitely had more receptions and seemed to be more part of the offense without over-forcing it to him. So because they had the injuries they do now, though, look for him to get the ball even that much more. And also definitely like what we saw out of Worthy, the number one draft pick for the Kansas City Chiefs. They just continue to win. I think they will continue to win. When all is said and done, as I said, I picked them to win it all yet again. I don't see much that's making me think that they cannot do it. And, of course, we had the Ravens monkey stomping the Bills. Now, I don't know what happened to the Buffalo Bills in that game, but it was over early, okay? 35-10 is not indicative of how bad a score it should have been. Hey, Derrick Henry is a grown-ass man. He ran the ball like a grown-ass man. And when he wasn't running the ball, that dude known as Action Jackson himself, Lamar Jackson, he did his thing and handled his business, and they whooped him, okay? The Baltimore Ravens play like that most games. Most of those games, they most definitely will win. And when all is said and done, they will at least be in an argument when it comes time to determine who going to the big game, okay? So, yeah, these last couple of weeks, we've seen a different Baltimore Ravens team, one more like we thought we would see. Then, of course, we had the Monday night games. The Titans beat the Dolphins 31-12. Titans not that good, okay? It's just the Dolphins that bad. I mean, think about it. They're down to the third string quarterback, and that brother did not look good in that game, okay? Will Levis still doing stupid stuff to the point where they actually benched him and put in the backup for him. So that was just one of those games where, okay, they had to play each other, injuries and stupid stuff aside, whatever happened, happened, and it did. I can't make a good argument for either team on that one. And of course, my Detroit Lions, go Lions, they did win the second Monday night game, 42-29. They finally beat them doggone Seahawks. For the last 3 seasons, they've been getting us and beating us. We done brought them over here and we done whooped up on them. It was a good game, although I am concerned about our defense. At times, Geno Smith was making mincemeat out of that defense. He did have almost 400 yards of passing. That is definitely a concern moving forward. Our secondary, which was definitely one of the problems that we had with last year's team, is still very much a problem. Tackling was not always great. Definitely concerned about that kid Arnold, our first-round pick, and his propensity for getting pass interference penalties. Not liking it. But we still look very good on offense, and we got the job done. So happy about that. Lions on a bye for this week, so they get to rest before they come back the following week. In the meanwhile, we are going to now determine who is playing in this week's round of games and what we think they're going to do. So let's do that, all right? We got the Bucs and the Falcons. Definitely going to go with the Bucs on that one, even though they are playing the Falcons at home. Thursday night game, going with the Bucs. Sunday, 9:30. Got our first game out there across the pond, okay? In that game, we got the Jets and the Vikings. The Vikings are 4-0. I think they will make it to 5-0. The Jets not looking good. Traveling across the pond, I think maybe not be so good for older players such as the Rodgers. I think it's going to affect him. I think they're not going to play well. I think the Vikings are going to win this one. They got the Vikings by 2.5. I would take that in them points. We got the Ravens and the Bengals. Ravens, like I said, they've been playing real good. The Bengals, not quite where we need them to be. It is in Cincinnati. I don't care. I got Baltimore. They got Baltimore by 2.5. I got them by more than that, okay? By at least a touchdown. You got the Colts and the Jaguars. That is not going to be a good game, people. It's just not, especially if Richardson's not going to be back. Even if he is back, I still think it's going to be kind of mucky. And when all is said and done, I think Jaguars will probably find a way to win this one, though. So I'm going to go with the Jaguars. Patriots and Dolphins, again, going to be a horrible game, considering what we saw out of both of those teams last week. I'm going to go with the Dolphins, but barely. Browns and the Commanders. Commanders look real good right now. Browns not so much. It's going to be in Washington. I'm going with the Commanders. The Bills and the Texans. Both those teams 3-1. That should be a pretty interesting game. I'm having a hard time picking that one. I'm only going to Texans because they're at home, but would not be surprised if the Bills pull that one off. Should be a good game. I think that's going to be a bit of a shootout. You got the Panthers and the Bears. Yuck. I'm going Bears. Panthers just don't accept. I'm sorry. Okay. Moving on. Raiders and the Broncos. I'm going to definitely go with the Broncos on this one. I think they find a way to win that one at home. You got the 49ers and the Cardinals. Definitely going Niners on this one. Cardinals been looking bad. Defense better than the offense, but I just think that 49ers offense is going to be clicking, and they're going to put the whooping on them, plain and simple, especially since it's in 49er country. You got the Packers and the Rams. Rams just still too beat up. I got to go with the Packers, man. Giants and the Seahawks. Since I did like some of what I saw from the Seahawks, and I don't like what I see from the Giants at all, I got to go with the Seahawks. And would not be surprised if this is a butt whooping. Definitely since it's going to be in Seattle. I'm definitely going big on Seahawks on that one. You got the Cowboys and Steelers in the night game. That should actually be a decent game. Okay. I think in the end, I'm going with the Steelers because they're going to probably do a pretty decent job of running the football. And teams that run the football well in these last couple of years against the Cowboys tend to be the winner. So I'm going Steelers. And only got one Monday night game next week. Back to the one, which is good. Double Monday night games. I'm not liking that because they right up next to each other. You get to that point where you have to choose one or the other. It's a bad do. So, yeah, glad they're back to one Monday night game for this week. That game is the Chiefs and the Saints, and it is in Kansas City. I'm pretty sure if Tay-Tay is not on tour, and I think she might actually be on tour at that point. But if she's not, she definitely will be in the house in Kansas City. That's good for the league. That's good for TV. Not so good for y'all that hate us. But nonetheless, none of that matters. When all is said and done, I think the Chiefs win again. 5-0 against them Saints. And that's the picks for this week. And that is our sports report for this week. E-Buck here talking sports. We made it through. Only coughed a couple times. Not bad. Sinuses, weather change, all that. But we powered through and we made it happen. Okay, so thankful. Thanks to you, the audience, for checking out our Big Buck Sports Report. You can find us now on this platform, YouTube. We also going to move certain segments of this to TikTok. You can find us on the newly formed Nighthawk Network Radio. And also, we should be getting some play over there at WAHR Atlanta Hot Radio. Find both of those platforms on the Live 365 app or our Facebook pages thereof. We appreciate you for checking in, and thank you. We are talking the sports you like, and continue to do so. If we are not, then by all means, hit up my messenger, Eric Hawk 45, or hit my Facebook page, Eric Buckner, and let us know what sports you would like for us to focus on. Yes, we are aware that hockey preseason has begun, and the NBA preseason will begin this weekend as well. So we will be checking in with some of those sports also in the weeks to come. Looking forward to this time of year because, like I said, all the sports come together. We have plenty to talk about here on the report. So again, thank you all. We appreciate you. Until next time, good people, be blessed, don't stress. When all else fail, put your hands together to the man and let him deal with the rest. We up out this piece, the deuces, and later.